What are the levers that bring value to a business? What should you be thinking about before you sell to make sure you can move the right levers to maximize value?
There are, I think, three main things that people really need to think about if they're looking to sell the business in the next 1 to 2 years.
Hi, I'm David Katch, Chief Collaboration Officer.
And I'm Shaun, CFO and Head of Mergers and Acquisitions. We lead deals at Redwood Services, one of the most prolific investors in the home services industry, where we've raised and closed over 60 deals and $2 billion in total transactions.
We're the guys who get excited about doing deals where everyone wins.
It's not only that we're passionate about it, but we enjoy sharing with the people who benefit from it most, home service business owners.
These are our insights, real, honest, and authentic.
Welcome to Sell Yeah.
Let's get into it. All right, so today we're going to talk about what a seller needs to do to prepare their business to be sold. I think this is kind of an exciting topic. There's a lot to learn from a seller standpoint. Deals don't just happen on their own. Obviously, there's a lot of work that has to be done for a seller to prepare. Today, we'll talk about what does a seller need to look at? What does it need to prepare to maximize the value of their business when they are actually ready to sell? So let's go into it. Let's talk about what are some of the things that a seller needs to have in order to maximize the value of their business. And let's start with the financials.
Sure. Maybe the first point to make here is that some of these items that we're going to talk about today are going to take time to implement. It could be, in some cases, 1 to 2 years that you need to start thinking ahead if you are looking to transition the business away. And so having the end goal in mind that you want to be able to solve for is super important on the front end. But the financials are obviously a big portion of any deal, and making sure a few things related to the financials that you're keeping in mind are, number one, cleanliness and consistency and proper accounting are going to be very top of mind for a seller. We have talked about going through a QV process in the past. A QV may be done on your business, and making sure that you have clean financials that are easily explainable is something that people are going to look for and will make the process a lot easier. The second thing is just knowing the story of the business and the trends that people are seeing in the financials. If revenue is going up, can you explain why? What are the drivers? If the business is having challenges, whether it's margin compression or revenues going down, have an explanation as to why and even some potential mitigants. So just being able to contextualize what people are seeing in the numbers with the story is very important. And then the last thing is that there are very few sellers that are looking to transact the business whenever they do end up selling it. And so understanding that there are things in the past that have been done in the business that are not going to be included in the go-forward ecosystem, normally stuff that people are selling that people are spending that are one-time or potentially personal expenses, knowing EBITDA adjustments that will ultimately be adjusted out of earnings is crucial to making sure that you're maximizing the potential outcome in a deal for a seller.
You use that crazy word EBITDA again.
That's back to my favorite word.
Talk about adjustments, EBITDA adjustments, and how that might play into the financials.
Yeah, so during the quality of earnings process, the financial accountants are going to do is they're going to figure out if there are any one-time items, non-recurring items, or personal expenses that were running through the P&L historically that need to be adjusted out to get a true picture of what EBITDA forward-looking is going to be for the business. And once you map those adjustments out, they're going to be generally additive to EBITDA for the seller. So you want to have a clear picture of what is not normal course for the business and keep track of those items over time.
And additive to the business just means that the seller gets paid more because there's more value in the business.
Yeah. If reported EBITDA is $100,000 and there's $200,000 of adjustments, then $300,000 of EBITDA is going to be a lot better than just what's reported in the financials overall.
We do find a lot of sellers, a lot of companies are using QuickBooks, which is probably the most popular accounting software, which is good because they're the reports that are generally pulled from accounting diligence and preparing for the deal. Most of them are pretty canned reports in QuickBooks, so that's usually a very easy part of the process. Generally, sellers are pretty clear about how to run their reports, but if not, buyers are always know how to work QuickBooks. They can help pulling those reports, the P&L and the balance sheets and things like that. So from a seller standpoint, it's great. QuickBooks is probably, one of the best, if not the best, as far as pulling these reports that buyers are going to need.
It's very easy to use. And a lot of times we as buyers, we're agnostic to the software. What we just want to be able to see is consistency, predictability. Things are classified the same way. There's not a bunch of jumping around between periods in the way that things were coded or accounted for. And so as long as you see consistency, it'll make the process a lot easier.
But the theme here is you make sure you have good books, good clean books. That's really an important part of the process.
Absolutely.
Okay, then let's talk about what are the levers that bring value to a business. What should you be thinking about before you sell to make sure you can move the right levers to maximize value?
Yeah, absolutely. There are, I think, three main things that people really need to think about if they're looking to sell the business in the next 1 to 2 years. Number one is mix and customer related. Are there any items in your business mix that could cause the seller or the buyer to ding you on valuation, whether it be customer concentration, mix that's more cyclical or project-based that doesn't require as high of a multiple, whether there's exposure to single lead sources. We've talked about big box or utilities or commercial exposure in general that could provide some concentration that people don't view as highly. So being able to transition away or demix from those types of areas is going to be very valuable, even in a relatively short amount of time. So that's number one. Number two is making sure that there is succession in place for the business so that the management team and the infrastructure going forward is going to be robust enough such that a buyer will pay a higher multiple for the business because they believe that the new management team, if the owner is going to be exiting, is capable of running the business for the future. If not, the owner may need to commit to stay on for some period of time while they build succession planning.
I mean, that's just good advice in general.
Totally.
Because even if you're not planning on selling your business, you never know what's going to happen. God forbid somebody could get sick or something could happen. You always want to make sure you have a strong bench to continue to lead your business going forward.
Yep.
Okay.
The last one is just trajectory. Businesses that are growing, have strong metrics, have a strong trajectory are going to be more valuable over time than businesses that have a falling trajectory or have whatever margin or revenue pressures. So being able to enter a deal process from a position of strength and a position of performance strength is going to be a lot more valuable than, if you kind of got a gun to your head because things are going the opposite way.
Sure. There's a lot of tax implications, corporate structure, legal structure that's also plays an important part in preparing yourself to sell.
Absolutely. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give to any seller is make sure that you have a strong stable of advisors that you trust and that have competency in specifically deals. So you want a strong financial advisor, you likely want a strong tax accountant, and you definitely want a strong M&A attorney. It makes everything way easier on the back end if you can get those types of people lined up for you ahead of even getting to an LOI.
And there's also just the idea of setting goals for yourself, of thinking about, I want to be at this level of revenue or this level of profit over the next few years. If maybe you're young and you're not interested in selling right now, you certainly want to be thinking about what your future is going to look like and be disciplined about it. Set goals for yourself, figure out, year 1, year 2, year 5, here's where I'd like to be. And we've certainly found in our business that setting goals has certainly kept us focused on the prize, and it's worked. And so for any seller, think about what that prize should look like and set yourself goals to get there.
One of the things that we do at Redwood is through any 5-year cycle, we actually build a transaction scorecard for what we want the business to look like when it does come time to sell it, whenever that might be in the future. And so we have a list of 15 metrics and things that we want to be able to speak to when it comes time for a deal that we think is going to make the business more valuable and everybody's efforts be more structurally rewarding because we've thought about them ahead of time. So it's great to set goals and work towards them over time.
Like we mentioned, I mean, there's a lot to prepare. This is not usually this is not a split second decision. Unfortunately, if it is, it's probably because there's something unfortunate that has happened. But assuming it's not, there are a lot of things that a seller can do to prepare to maximize the value of their business. We talked about getting your financials in order, getting your legal structure, your governance in order, getting a strong leadership team behind you. I think these are all very important things that sellers should be thinking about in getting it ready to be sold.
One other thing that I might add that's a little bit more tactical is when you're going through a deal process, you are not going to be able to do it yourself. So be thinking about ahead of time, who do I want to include in the circle of trust that is going to help facilitate the transaction for me? A lot of times it's a CFO, controller, or accountant. A lot of times it might be the general manager of the business if that's not the owner. But you need people that are going to be understanding what's going on ahead of close and helping you through the process, because it's usually more than one person can handle, even with a stable of advisors. Yeah. Poor decisions. One beer, one bad deal decision, and one lesson we paid for so you don't have to.
All right, so now we're up to our poor decisions segment, where we talk about some of the poor decisions we might have made in our career and how we can educate potential sellers on not to make these poor decisions again. So today we have a beer you brought. Kind of talk a little bit about what we're drinking today.
Yeah, we're drinking today. This is the all-day West Coast IPA from Founders Brewing. I thought Founders might be topical for some of our listeners today, so looking forward to try a little bit of Founders beer with our poor decision.
It's a product of Michigan. Okay, let's get in it. All right.
Citrusy and hop forward.
Nice.
Cheers.
All right, so let's talk about today's poor decision. I know this is one that it was part of your career before Redwood. Talk about, as it relates to sellers preparing to sell their business, what is something that you saw or a poor decision that you might have made that our sellers can learn from?
This one was an expensive one. A little bit more expensive than some of the ones we've talked about previously. But today's poor decision was, in a previous life, I was running a business that had a lot of customer and industry-specific concentration that we had attempted to diversify the customer base away from the concentration that it had. But ultimately, we were not as successful as we might have liked over time. And ultimately, it affected the valuation of the business when it ended up selling. And so if we had been more thoughtful in preparing how we were going to diversify away the mix, we might have been more successful. Still ended up being a great deal, but I do think that we left money on the table because of the concentration.
What can a potential seller learn from that?
Just being able to be forward thinking about and honest with yourself about where the business is actually at today and what you need to improve over time. Try and spot where you think the holes are and take a second to work on the business, not in the business. And doing that ahead of any deal process, ideally with, potentially a year plus advance notice, will allow you to make a lot of changes that could be very valuable to you and your team over time.
And ask for advice. I mean, there are people that have done this before. We've done it before. There's people that have been in this industry, have sold businesses, have bought businesses. Feel free to ask them. I think it's important to learn from other people.
Absolutely. I'll offer my own expertise or maybe lack thereof to anybody that wants to talk about what they can do to improve their business before they look to make an exit.
That's very helpful. Okay.
So yeah. If you're interested in learning more about the potential sale of your HVAC, plumbing, or electrical business, or have general questions about the process, feel free to contact me at Shaun at redwoodservices.com or contact us at redwoodservices.com.